We saw that the didactic was important, but it was such a small part. The Bible study was such a small part. The life on life, the walking along with them. Todd, Philip, they're studying. I know they're in the library. Bring them a hamburger, bring them a sandwich, which you had to smuggle in the library. But you bring it to them, you give them something to eat. You say, hey, come, let's talk. You've got to walk to this class. You take advantage of that time, you talk with them. What's going on? How can I pray for you? And they opened and shared it up. So with Todd and Philip, I did have the privilege of pouring into them to such a level to learn so much from them as they grew closer to God. But it started out with just a simple, let's look at what the Bible says about this.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Disciple Dilemma. We have got a really interesting conversation today. If you're a disciple and you want to hear about a disciple maker making disciples, let's talk about a physician. Now he wanted to call this session Answering the Great Physician's Call Making Disciples, but I want you to hear the story of Dr. Mike Shaffner, who was an industrial engineer at Georgia Tech and then into medical school, then as an emergency room physician for his medical career, who makes disciples, young and old. This is a great conversation about discipleship. Let's listen in as Mike talks with us. Dr. Mike Shaffner, we're so delighted that you're with us on the Disciple Dilemma. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Dennis.
How'd you get here?
Grew up in a church where the pastor, and you would love this, Dennis, the pastor was about disciple making. He was a graduate from Dallas Theological, and he came into it with, let's don't just read the Bible and have a sermon. Let's talk about what it means and how it can be applied into your life. Let's talk about what it says we're supposed to do.
As a young guy, what did you think a disciple was?
That the Great Commission was not an option. It was a commandment. And that came from older men in our church who believed it and practiced it. So it wasn't just a concept that I did not see happening. It was something that I saw every day, whether it was from my father, from our pastor, and it was a smaller church. It was a non-denominational church. People knew each other and they talked, and it was exciting. It was, let's look at this passage. Let's see what it says.
So, okay, look, this is kind of weird, folks. And here's why this is kind of weird. It's kind of weird because most of us have grown up in churches where the pastors were wonderful. They taught us a lot about the Bible, but most of us have not grown up in churches where pastors are talking about disciple making. Secondly, we just heard another really weird phrase go by that Mike brought up, and that is you've got intergenerational conversations going on about let's get together and figure out what this means. In this case, the Great Commission, Matthew 28. So we've got Jesus telling us to go and to make, and you're hearing this reinforced from your pastor and from folks who are kind of all across the age bandwidth?
Yes.
How does this journey play out for a disciple heading off into college? What's going on in your head as you arrive at college?
So, well, first college, before even medical school, a lot of these concepts, a lot of training, a lot of understanding, but not application yet.
Okay.
So here I am, a young man going off to Georgia Tech. I'm 17, leaving home, moved into my dorm. My parents, thankfully, they helped me move down there. They waved goodbye and they went home. So rubber meets the road, principles given, application as far as thought, but actually in practice hadn't occurred as much yet. So it's like, okay, how does this apply to me? Knew nobody, except for my roommate who, thankfully went to the same small church. He was a little bit older than me, and it was a great friend to have initially, but we had different interests. I would much rather have a ball in my hand. He would much rather have a book in his hand. So I was on the basketball court. I was on the tennis court. I was active doing things, and then I met some guys. And these guys were like, come along, let's talk, let's play basketball together. And we ended up being on a team together. And from that, we started saying, we want to make a difference. We want to have an impact here at Georgia Tech, more than just being students here. So we called each other, we talked to each other, and I don't even know which one of us suggested it, but let's start praying.
So, okay, this is like really different. This is a really different universe, but I want people to catch for just a minute some really important points that Mike is making. You arrive at Georgia Tech. Here's your undergraduate period. and you've been trained as a disciple, but you haven't lived a lot of life practically on the road. And now you're on the road
Exactly.
with a roommate, and you guys are saying, I think we need to start praying about stuff. And I think we need to start doing some life together. Is that kind of how this journey's going?
Yes.
What happens?
So 17, I'm a young man. We start praying, and we started committing to prayer. And here we are, freshmen in college.
Mhm.
And we were getting up on Tuesdays at 5:30 in the morning. And we had a 45-minute to an hour time blocked to just pray for Georgia Tech. And there was about 4 or 5 of us that did that. All of us on the same basketball team. And we prayed and we prayed, and we didn't really act outside of praying for a number of months. We made friends. We learned what classes were. We learned what it meant to be freshmen in college. Although there was a couple of us that were sophomores. And then we came up with the idea of let's do a Bible study. How do we reach out to people? How do we make things real?
So you're making friends, and now you make the decision, let's start putting a forum together where people can get together and talk.
Exactly.
What happened there? What happened?
So we did a little Bible study, and since it was us, it was like we rotated on leading the Bible study. Now, our training was nothing more than just our time with God in the morning, what we had learned from our own personal journey, from our church, from our pastors, etc. And so we rotated in Bible study, and it was amazing. We saw a couple people come to know Christ right at the beginning of it.
Okay, so here, wait a minute. We've got you practicing clergy without a license. Okay, you have shown up, you have dared to run a Bible study, you've dared to interact with people, you've dared to make friends with people, and you've even gone so far as when the chance came up, you started talking to them about Christ, and some people came to Christ.
Exactly.
Okay, so you're doing liturgies without a license here. I mean, this is really scary stuff. Or is it? Is this what we should think about in the Western Christian world that we don't think about, which is it's just all us ordinary folks going out and doing the ordinary stuff that God has ordained for extraordinary results?
Yes, it's ordinary guys, ordinary students looking to an extraordinary God to do something amazing, and he does. All he wants us to do is open up our hands, our hearts, deny ourselves, and let him take over. It's as simple as that.
Okay, wait. So wait, look. Here's the problem. The problem is you're a Georgia Tech genius. Okay, you're going to be a doctor. The rest of us, come on, man. I mean, look, this is where disciples come from. They come from the pastors, the professors, and the docs, the PhDs, right? So what are you trying to sell me here? I mean, like you're this dude who has this incredible career ahead of you, and you know it, and I know it. Can we just let people off the hook here and say, look, that's a special class of people. Not everybody can lead Bible studies. Not everybody can talk to people about Christ. Help me out.
So as far as the future at that point was I was just trying to make it through my first quarter at Tech. I was not pre-med. I was there to pass a grade and to play basketball.
Okay, so you're telling us you just wanted to be a regular guy. You weren't trying to be this genius, celebrity, awesome, amazing human being. You were just serving Christ as a regular person.
Yeah, just living every day, waking up, starting the day off with a couple of principles, spending some time in prayer, having a couple brothers that we would hang out, get some food, shoot the hoops, come back, talk about it. But we all had something a little bit more, and the fact that we wanted to share somehow what had happened in our life with somebody else. We were clueless about how to do it, but we knew that prayer was the start.
I'm sorry, we're not getting a lot of you guys off the hook yet, but we're working on this. So you've got this Bible study going. You've got relationships going with people. Some of these people are asking you about your faith. Some of these people are coming to Christ because you guys are having conversations about your faith. Surely we can look at your life, though, and say, you must have led a relatively angelic life, and these people were seeing kind of this uber goober Christian.
I love sanctification. I mean, I made a lordship decision at 11, but God had to take a knucklehead, a complete adrenaline junkie, and he had to completely refine that, work on it, take anything that was Mike and put it into something that was worthwhile. But that has been a process now that's gone on for 40 some years, and it's still got a long ways to go. But along the path, he's like, I have brought you to something more, and I want you to share that with others. And how do you do that? I didn't know how to do that, except for they're in the same boat I'm in. They're trying to make a grade. They've got a girlfriend, they got girlfriend problems. They're hungry. They just, conversation comes about. It goes to what's important to you.
I want to do a time warp. We're going to jump ahead.
Okay.
We're going to get to med school. Okay. And the reason why this conversation is so important to me is because I know two guys, one guy named Todd, one guy named Philip. We were together in a church. I knew who they were as Christian leaders. I watched them in the chairs. I watched them serve Christ. I watched them work with their medical careers. And I think that you were at the root of this. I think here again, we have this unlicensed disciple out causing discipleship to happen. I want to hear the story because surely the Georgia Tech thing was an aberration. Tell me the Todd and the Philip stories.
So with Todd and Philip, I did have the privilege of pouring into them to such a level to learn so much from them as they grew closer to God. But it started out with just a simple, let's look at what the Bible says about this.
I love the story's echo of Daniel. You are in a dark, difficult place where a lot of other gods are on the table, and you have a very different diet than all the rest of the hostages that are in captivity in this particular environment. And people notice, and people are talking, and people are asking you for the reason, for the hope that's within you. Maybe just pieces and parts of that.
So the decision to go into medical school didn't happen until I was in the end of my junior year at Tech.
Okay.
So I had no concept about medicine until that point. I was accepted into medical school actually a week before I graduated from Georgia Tech. So I had to rearrange my schedule, make sure I got my final exams done. Then I drove to Augusta, Georgia to start at Medical College of Georgia. And on the way there, I had a 2.5-hour drive where it was just like, okay, what does this mean? What is medical school? And I was like, I'm going to become an expert in medicine because the training says I'm going to be. But it's like, God, what's happened at Tech was awesome. And this is what my life is about. I don't want to become an expert in medicine without also understanding more of the tools you give us and how we live our life, more about how to pray, how to spend time in your word, how to share you more effectively. And so the process from 17 to 22, when I was going to medical school, I had learned some, but even then I recognized my understanding of things is so small.
Okay. Let me see if I've got a kind of a package on this thing so far. You didn't decide to go to med school until like the end.
Yes.
And then you go to med school. Look, disciples are kind of like these superhumans, right? I mean, they go off into the mission field, into the really dark, hairy places. You can't be a disciple and be a politician or a plumber or a trauma surgeon, right? I mean, this is a spiritual thing, right? So come on, you're driving down to med school and you're thinking, I'm going to be a doctor. There's got to be some tension here between being a disciple and being a doctor.
Oh, there's a lot of tension. So I get to medical school.
Yeah.
Moved into my apartment 2 days later, classes start. I had a quick turnaround from Tech. So go to the first class, the first day. The dean of students gets up in front and she says, I've had this wonderful prayer time on the way to Augusta. Just like I'm going to pursue this. It's going to be an expert in learning about God and learning about medicine. It's going to go side to side. And I get there and she gets in front of the class and she says, about medicine, this is your commitment. This must be your God.
Whoa. Say that again?
Yes. And so exactly, I am sitting there going, I'm in the wrong place. I'm not supposed to be here. And I'm sitting in the back of the room, confused, wondering what's going on. But then a guy gets up after her and he says, there's a group of us, we got a little Christian Bible study. We're going to go water skiing this weekend. Come along and go water skiing. And that was me. I was like, okay, I love to water ski. He brought up food. I love to eat. I'm going to go water ski and eat some food. And so very quickly I was given an answer from the Lord that, okay, there's more to this.
We are midway through a conversation with Dr. Mike Shaffner, emergency room physician and follower of Christ. What a terrific conversation about making disciples. Second half of the show, we're going to be talking a little more with Mike about what does it mean to be a doctor? What does it mean to live real life with people, to make disciples? What's really under the hood in the life of the disciple? Is it all roses, or how do you face challenges as disciples? Stay with us. It's all coming up next on the Disciple Dilemma.
But give me time. Let me show you. So we got together and sitting on the dock, waiting for my turn to ski. And I actually brought my water ski from Atlanta thinking, it's warm outside. Maybe I'll have a chance to find a lake and maybe do some skiing. So I had my ski with me, sitting on the dock, meet this other guy, awesome man, name is Rick. And we started talking. And as we started talking, we saw the same heart. It's like, we want to become physicians. We want to impact people that way, but we also want to know more about our relationship with God, what he's called us to, what kind of impact can we have? And the end of that is we committed to start praying together.
So here we've got the commitment to a professional career beginning, and to continue the calling, the common calling for all believers to be disciples. That's merging together and welding up at this point. Tell me a little bit about how you start making disciples of people like the guys I just mentioned. What's going on there?
So medical school is a little bit tough. It requires some time commitment. So Rick and I, we found he had a friend that was in his class. He was a sophomore by the name of Bill. And then we found two others that had the same sort of thought that we want to be here not only to become experts in medicine, but also to share Christ. We started praying.
There's five of you now.
There was five of us,
okay.
And we were praying, and we started sharing. It was not beautiful. It was not a great presentation. It was basically, I'm tired. I've been studying. Can we talk about something besides medicine? I'm hungry. You look hungry. You want to go hit a tennis ball, you want to get a meal, and then conversations came. And the conversations, a lot of times, if it's something that's important to you, it just comes up. And so often in life, I walk away from it and go, oh, I could have shared with them, because not an all-star. I'm better at water skiing. I'm better at playing basketball, and I can eat really well. But as far as those things, I miss it so often. But if relying on him, praying, we shared it again. A couple people came to know Christ.
These guys are sitting here in the dining hall. You walk by, you sit down, you say, I'm going to talk to you about Jesus. Sit here and listen to me. I mean, how did it happen? How did this take place?
Okay. A life reliant on him is a life that looks different, whether you mean for it to be or not. If you wake up and you say, I love Luke 9:23. If any man wishes to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. If you actually take that principle and you deny yourself, you clean house, you take 1 John 1:9 and you confess all the things that have happened in the last few hours, because that's the typical pattern of my life.
Do people have to just be like evangelists? You got to have your soapbox, your bullhorn with you, and you just wander around, find some poor schmuck and throw him against the wall and say, hey, we're gonna witness to you? Or is this relationship thing how those connections began to happen?
So conversations came on the basketball court. Conversations came as we took a break from the books. Conversations came as we were like, I just got to get away from this. Where are you from? What do you like to do? Let's just talk about something else besides medicine. And conversations happen. And people ask questions, or people go through struggles. It's like, Mike, you seem pretty even keeled. Why are you even keeled? We have a big anatomy test tomorrow. And I simply answer, I've been praying like crazy because I need to. I got a big anatomy test tomorrow. Pray. What does that mean?
So we've got a disciple who is walking through a process of shedding day by day the stuff that we accumulate as human beings in our own nature and in our own ways. And what you're really telling me is this shedding leads to people noticing that you're a little weird.
Yes.
And now they want to, and what I'm hearing on the second half of the other side of the coin is you're having conversations with people, kind of learning their stories and shooting hoops with them and just letting them decompress about life. And eventually a collision theologically is happening in somebody else's life.
Yes.
So no bullhorn, no soapbox. You don't consider yourself Billy Graham.
Not even.
You're a regular guy who's just building relationships and trying to shed the stuff you're supposed to shed and pick up the stuff in sanctification that you're supposed to pick up. And people are looking at you and going like, why do you talk like that? Why do you act like that?
It's a reliance on God. And it would have been really, really hard without a brother to walk along with it, because it's scary to go and live in the world, because it's scary to succeed at anything. It's scary to not succeed at anything. It's scary to live life. But when you have something that does supersede that and someone asks about it, it's simple to share. Then you recognize I'm in this battle together. I'm not alone. And sometimes alone can be scary, even when you've got the Lord holding you so tight. It can still be scary, but then he provides means. He's like, I've given you a commandment, but I'm not going to make it impossible. In fact, I'm going to make it to where I do it and you're a vessel, you're an ambassador, but I'm going to give you the means to do that and support to do that. I'm going to give you a brother like Rick that you can pray with, someone that you can, hey, I had a chance to eat lunch with somebody. We talked about this. I said this. What do you think? And he says the same thing back. Well, let's pray for him. Okay. So we spent 2 years and we looked at the principles in the Bible. What do we do? What is discipleship? And it seemed to us that Jesus gave us an example. He spent time with people. He got to know them. He asked them questions that he wasn't afraid to ask, but he did it with gentleness. He did it with reverence. He did it in a way that they were like, I accept him. He's concerned for me. So we checked our hearts at the door when we woke up in the morning. We denied ourselves. We looked at it not as an option, but as a commandment, but we didn't pressure it. We said, Lord, we want to be obedient. Can you open the door for us to be obedient? And he did. We kept praying. We kept praying. 2 years of praying with Rick, the 5 of us, praying, laying it before God. And then Todd and Philip's class came.
2 years.
2 years.
This ain't a microwave pizza.
It is not a microwave. That's the thing about discipleship. That's the thing about walking with him. I made a lordship decision. So far, sanctification has been a 47-year process that doesn't seem to be finished yet.
So what you're trying to tell us is that this life of a consistent, persistent disciple just runs swimmingly. Everything's great, no troubles, no trauma. Everything is just terrific. Get to be a disciple who does a little bit of sanctifying every day. People are going to come to Christ and your troubles are over with. Life's easy now.
I had the opportunity of getting to repeat anatomy. It was a wonderful opportunity. The professors, I made a 69.8 in anatomy.
A 69.8.
Yes. I even went to the anatomy professor and said, is there anything I can do to give me that 0.2? Is there any quick? And they smiled at me and said, no, you're going to have the opportunity to retake the entire class.
Can you look back on that now and realize who was watching you while that was going on?
Oh, so many people watching. It's, I think when we live a life that's different, everyone notices whether we think they do or not. But that's God. But sometimes there's a cost that has to be paid for it. In fact, always there's a cost that has to be paid for it. So we prayed. I got to repeat anatomy. I made an upper 90 on anatomy. I rocked it. And the professor even said, you really got this stuff down.
Tell me just a little bit so our folks can hear about today. You got some people in your life today you're walking alongside. What does it look like now? Surely you've given that up and you've retired.
Yes, I do have some guys in my life right now that I'm spending some time with. There's 4 guys. They're all in college. They're all at Tech. So we've got that in common. One of the guys that I'm mentoring right now, discipling, is a privilege, is my son. It is awesome to pour into your own son.
That's scary.
It is scary because your son knows.
We've talked about a lot of college events. You have a long career as an ER trauma guy, a doctor facing a lot of life and death issues, a lot of just chaos. Can you give the doctors that are watching this podcast just a little bit of a thought about advice you have for them as followers of Christ in what I have to imagine is a pretty tough environment? What lessons learned would you offer for disciples there?
I think you can apply this to anything. In our culture, all of us become experts at something, whether it's business, whether it's flying a plane, whether it's medicine, whether it's law. We all become experts at something. The problem is that it's so easy to rely on the things that you're good at. It's so easy to say, I'm an engineer, I know numbers. I'm a businessman, I can look at a spreadsheet. I can look at a patient and I can treat pneumonia. I think the enemy's given us this bag that says, rely on what you're good at and let the rest just kind of happen. To me, it's been a pursuit in the last 47 years of learning more about how do I relate to God? How can I pray more effectively? And the thing that's awesome about it is the Lord's Prayer. Jesus gives us a model on prayer. All I've got to do is spend some time studying and looking at it. Do I spend time studying medicine, learning medicine? Oh yeah, I've got to keep my medical education all up to date. And that goes for anything that you do in life. But I want to couple that with, I'm going to spend time learning these things about the tools of following after Christ. And it's there. That manual he gave us, the answers he gives us through prayer are very real for an everyman, no matter what we're an expert at.
Mike, I want to know something based on all the things you discussed today. Are you an evangelist?
No.
Wait. You just said no. You're this disciple making dude sharing Jesus with people. You're an evangelist.
So I look at the spiritual gifts and I go through the list and I go, I don't have that one. I don't have that one. I get to evangelism and I go, wow, I really don't have that one. I miss it. I don't see it. And early on, I recognized that about myself. God, I want to share you so much that I need you to make it so obvious because I miss it so quickly that I won't miss it. And opportunities come and people ask questions. And I'm like, sometimes I'm even slow enough that I don't even realize it until they've asked, what does it mean to be a Christian? And I'm like, whoa, that one I get. But I asked for it.
So what we have is a conversation with a disciple maker who's not an evangelist. Did you guys get that? Did you hear this statement? Which is, some are called to be evangelists. Mike's not called to be an evangelist, but Mike is taking the evangelion, the good news, when he's asked, when people interact with him, when he relates to them into their lives.
We saw that the didactic was important, but it was such a small part. The Bible study was such a small part. The life on life, the walking along with them. Todd, Philip, they're studying. I know they're in the library. Bring them a hamburger, bring them a sandwich, which you got to smuggle in the library. But you bring it to them, you give them something to eat. You say, hey, come, let's talk. You've got to walk to this class. You take advantage of that time, you talk with them. What's going on? How can I pray for you? and they opened and shared it up.
Dr. Mike Shaffner, it has been a delight to be in the same room with you and to talk about discipleship. Thank you for talking with us.
Thanks, Dennis.
The discipleship that we've been talking about today is a rarity in American Christianity, in the Western Christian culture. The stuff Mike Shaffner has talked to us about today, fabulous, right on point with the biblical model Christ gave us. Would you help us get the word out that discipleship has been hacked in America? Help us by looking at our social media operations. We've got some great stuff on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Rumbly, the RSS feeds. Help us get the word out. Discipleship's been hacked, and we need to reform to the biblical model Christ gave us. And as always, thanks for listening.